The internet changed everything, including how we lived. Suddenly, everyone wanted a computer, and eventually, my family got one a couple of years ago. At first, it was a novelty. My wife used it to check her email and play games, while the kids used it for schoolwork and more gaming. I mainly browsed the web and occasionally watched adult content. Working late was my routine, often leaving the factory around midnight. Unlike other guys, I always went straight home. In the stillness of the house, I'd sit at the computer. After a while, I got bored with the usual stuff and started reading stories online. One particular topic began to intrigue me: infidelity. Reading these tales made me suspicious of my wife. I started paying close attention to her behavior, even picking fights with her despite her reassurances. The thoughts were hard to shake. As time passed, I stopped reading as much, but the suspicions lingered. I even started to question how I might react if I ever caught her cheating. Would it anger me? Or would I react in some twisted way? One day, I discussed it with Amanda, my wife, but the conversation only raised more questions. Our relationship had begun simply enough. But then, doubts crept in. Amanda's sister, Mary, had a reputation for promiscuity. I had a wild streak in my youth, too, but Mary's behavior was on another level. Her sexual escapades were well known, including participating in threesomes. I knew her husband, Jack, from work. He was a day shift supervisor who had recently transferred to another department. He invited me to their wedding. Mary was just as wild as Jack, and I never liked the way he acted around Amanda. Even though Amanda constantly reassured me that nothing was going on, I made it clear I would always protect her from people like Jack. We had agreed early in our marriage to keep our past relationships private to avoid jealousy. This had become even more important as our conflicting work schedules strained things between us. I didn't want to run into someone Amanda had been with, just as I didn't want to admit I had been with her sister. Still, despite everything, we got along. But we rarely saw each other. One day, Amanda asked me to fix a leak in Mary's sink, knowing full well that Jack was useless with repairs. I promised to take care of it before heading to work. While I worked on the sink, thoughts of Mary's promiscuous lifestyle lingered in my mind, further fueled by things Jack had said. Even though Mary made some flirty remarks, I kept the mood light, not letting her tempt me enough to jeopardize my marriage. When I got to Mary's house, she greeted me in a way that made it clear she wasn't just interested in having her sink fixed. As I unclogged the drain, which was blocked with eggshells and potato peels, Mary hovered nearby, making suggestive comments. "What are you doing, Mary?" I asked, trying to focus on the task at hand. "I want you," she replied. "Stop it, Mary. I'm just trying to finish this job," I said, keeping my tone firm but light-hearted. She paused briefly, long enough for me to finish fixing the sink. But as soon as I stood up, she came at me again. "So, are you going to sleep with me now?" "No, Mary, I can't. Amanda is your sister, and I love her. I'm not going to cheat on her, especially not with you," I told her. "Have you forgotten how I was in high school? Are you too good for me now?" she asked, pushing further. "Mary, please. I love Amanda, and she doesn't know about our past. She won't unless you tell her. You're a beautiful woman, but I love Amanda." "You're a fool," she hissed. "Either you sleep with me, or I'll tell Amanda you did it anyway. She'll believe me. After all, I'm her sister." I was stunned. "Why are you doing this? Why hurt us?" "Amanda loves you." Mary laughed. "My innocent sister thinks she's perfect. Let's see how she reacts when I spill the truth." "Mary, don't do this. I'm not sleeping with you. And I'll tell Amanda everything about our past." "She'll understand," I said, grabbing my tools and walking out the door. I left in my truck, my mind racing. Would Mary really lie to Amanda? I tried calling Amanda while at work, but she wasn't home, so I left her a message telling her I loved her and that we needed to talk about her sister. The day dragged on, my mind consumed by the thought of that inevitable conversation. By evening, I called home again, but there was still no answer. Later, I found out that Amanda had gone out with Mary and Jack, leaving the kids with her mom. I decided to keep the kids overnight. When Amanda's mom called, she asked, "Is something wrong?" "No," I replied, not wanting to alarm her. "But if you see Amanda, tell her I love her and I'll see her tonight." It was one of the longest nights of my life. I knew I had to tell Amanda the truth about my past with Mary. Finally, my shift ended, and I headed home, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Mary's car parked there, signaling what was to come. When I walked into the house, I was met with a sight that hit me like a punch to the gut. My wife, Amanda, was in a compromising situation with Jack and Mary. Rage surged through me, and chaos followed. The next thing I knew, I woke up in a hospital bed, disoriented, with a police officer standing beside me. "I see you're awake now." "I'm Officer Andrews," he said. "Where am I? And what happened to my wife?" I asked, my head throbbing. "You have a concussion from a blow to the head with a glass vase. There was a fight at your home, and though charges were initially considered, they've been dropped. You're lucky. It could have meant 18 months in jail." "What about the attack on me?" I asked. "Witnesses say you were in a scuffle with your brother-in-law when his wife hit you with the vase to stop the fight. It was a single blow to halt the altercation. Be grateful the charges were dropped." "Where was my wife during all of this?" I asked. "When we arrived, she was sick from excessive drinking. According to your sister-in-law, you became upset with her, leading to the confrontation. Your wife doesn't recall much, only that there was shouting. If the charges were dropped, why are you still here?" I asked. "My supervisor instructed me to wait for your statement," he said. I paused, then said, "I don't have anything to say." I wasn't about to broadcast to the world that I had caught my wife in bed with another man. I just lay there, silent. "Okay, it's your call," Officer Andrews said. "The doctor says you'll need to stay here until tomorrow. Consider yourself fortunate no charges were pressed." The officer left, and I was left with my pounding headache and swirling thoughts. What was I going to do? I couldn't live with a cheating wife, but I needed answers. I called my sister to pick me up the next day. I couldn't count on Amanda anymore, not after this. While waiting for Molly, my phone rang. It was Amanda. "Should I come get you?" "We need to talk," she said. "Now that we're square," she added. "Square? What are you talking about? You cheated on me with Jack, and you think we're even?" "I'm not discussing this over the phone. Molly's coming to pick me up. I'll grab my things and leave." "What do you mean, leave?" "I was just evening the score for what you did," Amanda retorted. I hung up, not willing to argue further. When Molly arrived, we drove to the house. I asked her to wait in the car to avoid a confrontation. Knocking on the door, Amanda answered. I asked about the kids, and she told me they were with her mom. We began to talk, and I asked her if she had listened to the voicemail I left her. "Yes, I did." "Mary claimed you coerced her into sleeping with you. How could you?" "I didn't do that. That's why I left the message. I went over to fix her sink, and she made advances. I refused, but she threatened to lie to you about it." "I don't believe you." "She wouldn't lie to me. She's my sister. She's jealous of our marriage, Amanda. She wanted to break us apart. Letting Jack sleep with you was part of their swinging lifestyle. They got what they wanted, and it destroyed our marriage." "No, that's not true." "I did it to get back at you for hurting my sister," Amanda shot back. "Mary knew intimate details about you, like the fact that you're uncircumcised and have a mole on your upper thigh. How would she know that if you didn't sleep with her?" "Amanda, she knew that because I was involved with her in high school, just like many other guys. I didn't tell you because I didn't want it to ruin our relationship. And you said we should bury our past." "I'm not sure who to trust anymore," Amanda said. "Mary is my sister, and you're my husband. But instead of talking to me, you let Jack get involved. Did you really think raping Mary would make things better? How could you even believe her accusations?" I was stunned. "Do you really believe your sister?" "I don't care what Mary says. This isn't just about Jack, it's about you not trusting me enough to talk things through. If you assaulted her, why didn't she report it?" Amanda countered. "She didn't want to cause a family scandal, but she had no problem involving the police last night." "Why wouldn't she cry rape?" "Because it didn't happen," I said firmly. "You can believe whoever you want, but this marriage is over. Why would you stay with someone you think is a rapist?" "No, you just wanted Jack, and you used me as an excuse." Amanda was tearful but defensive. "That's not true. I love you." "Love? Look up the word. It doesn't include sleeping with someone else, I snapped. I'll grab some of my things now. I'll come back next week for the rest. She was desperate. Hold on, Tom. This isn't how it was supposed to go. Mary said she forgave you, and that you'd forgive me. I only did it for revenge. I was fed up. No, Amanda. You slept with Jack and your sister. I'm done with this. I packed a suitcase, grabbed a few things, and prepared to leave. What about the kids? Amanda asked. Tell them whatever you want. I'll arrange visits through a lawyer, and Molly can help with the kids. I don't want to speak to you again. With that, I left the house, and my sister Molly drove me to a budget motel. On the way, I told her everything. She knew I was telling the truth. The following weeks were tough. I worked extra hours to cover my expenses, found a cheap apartment, and ate out most of the time. The divorce process went smoothly, assets were split equally, and I didn't mind paying child support because I loved my kids. I missed Amanda, but I knew it was over. I attended school events but avoided Amanda's family. I saw my kids weekly, and Amanda called often to talk about them. But as soon as she brought up our relationship, I hung up. Mary stuck to her story, which left Amanda torn. I had no proof to back up my side, so it was my word against Mary's. Amanda believed her, and that hurt more than anything. One afternoon, the school called to say that Carrie, our son, wasn't feeling well. I picked him up and discovered he just had a cold. I called Amanda, who was teaching middle school at the time, and told her I'd bring him home soon. After checking his temperature, which was only slightly elevated, I stayed with him until Amanda arrived about an hour later. While she was upstairs with Carrie, the phone rang. Without thinking, I answered. It was Mary. What are you doing there? She asked, her voice accusatory. Well, look who's calling the shots, I replied. Carrie was sick, so I brought him home. Thanks for ruining our marriage. I had forgotten the answering machine was still on, recording the call. Is Carrie okay? She asked, changing the subject. Why do you care? You're the reason his parents split. Things got out of hand, Mary admitted. You knew Jack wanted Amanda. If you had just slept with me, none of this would have happened. But instead, you came home and started a fight. You accused me of rape and made Jack assault Amanda. What kind of sister are you? Jack didn't force her. She willingly slept with him, and she'd probably do it again. She was drunk, and you filled her head with lies. Then you watched your husband violate her. Mary was calm. You can't prove anything. I warned you Amanda would believe me. If you need something, call me. Tell Amanda to ring me later. Hope Carrie feels better. She hung up, and I turned off the recorder. When Amanda came back downstairs, she asked, Who called? I didn't hold back. Your angel sister who never lies to you, I said sarcastically. What did she want? I recorded the call. She said to call her back. See you in court on Thursday, I guess that's our freedom day. I grabbed my keys and headed to my truck. On the way home, my phone rang at least 10 times. I finally answered. It was Amanda, apologizing. Mary told me the truth, that you didn't rape her, she said. Good to know, but it doesn't change anything. You slept with Jack without giving me a chance to explain. Even after telling you the truth, you chose to believe your sister. You thought I was a rapist. I loved you, Amanda, and maybe I still do, but I also hate you for what you did to our family. On Thursday, I took 2 days off work and went to my attorney's office to sign the divorce papers. I left before Amanda arrived. Feeling depressed, I went to the neighborhood bar and saw Jack sitting there. Without thinking, I punched him repeatedly until other people pulled me off. The police dragged me away, and I was arrested. I made one phone call, reaching out to Molly. I confessed what I had done and told her not to post bail. I'd face the consequences. After we hung up, tears flowed. Amanda tried to visit me in prison, but I refused to see her. Nearly 2 months later, my case went to court. I pled guilty to assault and received a 2-year sentence, with time served counted. Molly took care of my belongings and informed me that Amanda was unwell and wanted to see me. I refused. Molly said, Amanda truly loves you. Her family is furious with Mary. Plus, Amanda never signed the divorce papers, so legally, you're still married. Prison life was tough. Fights were common, and respect had to be earned. My cellmate, Lewis, was a lifer with a violent history. At first, things were rough between us, but eventually, we opened up to each other. One day, surprisingly, Amanda visited me. "What brings you here?" I asked, pretending to be angry. She looked lovely and vulnerable. "I still love you, Tom. I've made mistakes," she confessed, handing me photos of our kids, tears in her eyes. "I've moved on. Take care of our kids," I said, accepting the pictures. I didn't sign the divorce papers. "I'll wait for you, no matter how long it takes," she pleaded. I felt torn. Despite everything, I still loved her. But I turned away and walked back to my cell. A few weeks later, I overheard plans to attack Lewis. Without being a snitch, I warned him, hoping to save his life. The next day, Lewis prepared himself for the confrontation by concealing 2 books under his shirt to shield his kidneys. When the attacker lunged at him with a knife, the blade struck the books, preventing serious harm. Lewis's allies subdued the attacker until the guards arrived. Afterward, Lewis remained composed, even resuming his meal. I was amazed by his calmness. He started confiding in me more after that. Despite his tough exterior, he was different on the inside. Lewis asked about my family, and I shared my story about Mary and Amanda. "Do you still love her?" he asked. "Yes, but I can't forgive her," I replied. Lewis encouraged me not to hold on to grudges, sharing his own regrets. His words left me thinking about my future after prison. A month later, Amanda visited me again, bringing drawings from our kids, showing us as a family. "They miss you, Tom. And I miss you too. Can you forgive me? Can we rebuild our family? I've cut ties with Mary and Jack. I regret not trusting you," she said, tears in her eyes. I felt doubt lingering. Could I trust her again if we faced similar accusations? I told her, "Amanda, I want to forgive you, but it's hard. Seeing you with Jack is burned into my mind." "Did you have feelings for him?" "No, I hated every minute of it. I felt sick when you walked in. I regret everything. I only want you, Tom. You're the father of our children," she pleaded. A few weeks later, Molly visited with troubling news. I saw Mary and Jack together at the house. "I don't know why, but I thought you should know." Confusion hit me hard. Was Amanda lying again? I had been ready to forgive her, but now I didn't know what to believe. Another month went by, and Lewis, who used to be a lawyer, offered to help me with my parole. I trusted him, despite his criminal past. When I went to my parole hearing, the warden asked about my adjustment to prison life and my plans if released. "If you get out early, where would you live and work?" the warden asked. "I'd stay with my sister and her husband, and my old employer said they'd rehire me," I replied. "Aren't you married, Mr. Harper?" "Yes, sir, but we were going through with the divorce when I was sentenced. I'm not sure what the future holds for our marriage." The warden nodded. "We appreciate your honesty, Mr. Harper. We're cautious about early releases, especially with cases like yours. You'll be notified of our decision by the end of the month." "Thank you, sir, for considering my parole," I replied, then headed back to my cell. Lewis was waiting for me when I returned. "How did it go?" he asked. I told him about the meeting, and asked, "Did you have anything to do with this?" He chuckled. "You never know, but if you get out early, I expect a weekly box of cigarettes on my account." A few days later, Amanda visited me again. This time, she looked anxious. "A representative from the parole board visited me," she said. "Are you getting out on parole?" "I don't know yet." "What did they say?" I asked, feeling nervous. "They asked if you'd be staying with me." "I told them I'd love to have you back," she answered, her voice softening. I wanted to change the subject and decided to ask Amanda about her interactions with Mary and Jack. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. She seemed defensive, saying she didn't see Mary much. I didn't believe her. "What about Jack?" I pressed, watching her closely. "Why all the questions?" she snapped, clearly uncomfortable. I didn't back down. "You promised not to see Mary, yet they were both here together. Did something happen to Jack again?" She didn't answer and quickly left the room, confirming my suspicions. Something was going on. I couldn't prove it, but I knew it. As soon as she was out of sight, I called my sister, Molly, and told her about the encounter. She was supportive as always, reassuring me that she'd stand by me through whatever came next. A few days later, I called Molly again, this time to check if the parole board had contacted my old boss, Mr. Tomas, about my job. Molly confirmed that they had, and Tomas said I could return whenever I was released. She added that I had been one of his top employees. It felt good to hear that. Finally, something positive, something I could hold on to. Molly's words gave me hope. I later got a call from the prison informing me that I'd be released next week. They gave me the name of a lawyer who would be handling my case and the paperwork for my release. I was puzzled as to why I was meeting with a lawyer instead of a parole officer, but I figured they knew what they were doing. Before leaving, I made sure to thank Louis. I didn't know if he had anything to do with my early release, but I didn't care. Freedom was worth the weekly box of cigarettes I had promised him. When the day finally came, Molly was there waiting for me outside the prison gates. We hugged, and I kissed her on the cheek. Seeing her felt like a lifeline. Her husband welcomed me warmly when we got to their house. I wasn't sure what I'd do next, but being with family gave me a sense of comfort. Molly told me that Amanda had consulted a lawyer while I was locked up and had already started divorce proceedings. It stung, but I wasn't surprised. It only confirmed what I already knew. Amanda had moved on, and I had to do the same. But before I could let it go, I needed to arrange how I'd see my kids. I called Amanda to make sure she was home. I told her I wasn't looking for trouble and suggested we talk on her porch to figure out visitation arrangements. She reluctantly agreed, but not before warning me that she'd call the cops if things got out of hand. That was typical Amanda, always preparing for a fight. When I arrived, the kids saw me before I even got to the porch. They came running, shouting, "Daddy! Daddy!" I hadn't seen them in so long, and the joy in their voices hit me hard. I crouched down and opened my arms, hugging them tighter than I had in years. For a moment, it was like nothing had changed. After we talked for a bit, I told them to go ride their bikes. I needed to have this conversation with their mother, and I didn't want them overhearing. Watching them pedal away, I couldn't help but remember the days when Amanda and I would sit on that porch, watching them play. Back then, I thought we had everything figured out. How wrong I had been. "These kids are mine too, Amanda," I started, turning to her. She crossed her arms, already defensive. I pressed on, not willing to let her dismiss me. I want to be part of their lives. She didn't say much, just nodded and let me speak, but I could see she was waiting for the accusations to come. I didn't make her wait long. "I was willing to forgive you, you know. For everything. But then I find out you went back to Jack and Mary. I can't forgive that. And I won't tolerate my kids being exposed to whatever lifestyle they're living. You understand me?" She insisted she had changed, that the kids wouldn't be around Jack and Mary anymore. I wanted to believe her, but I knew better by now. "Actions speak louder than words, Amanda," I said, shaking my head. We said our goodbyes after that. I hugged the kids once more, promising to see them soon. But as I walked back to my truck, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still off. I needed legal advice, and I needed to get things in order fast. The next day, I went to see the lawyer who had helped secure my parole. When I got to the office, I handed the receptionist the card I had been given and asked to see Mr. Bev Brady. I expected to meet an older man, someone who had been doing this for years. I was surprised when the receptionist referred to Miss Brady. A few moments later, a woman walked up to me. She was beautiful, more striking than I had expected, dark hair, dimples, and a blue suit that made her look both professional and approachable at the same time. "Tom Harper, I presume," she said, her voice calm but confident. "Yeah, that's me," I replied, shaking her hand. "I'm Bev Brady," she introduced herself, and I followed her into her office. I could barely believe this was the same person who had helped me get out of prison. She looked too young to have had that kind of influence. But I kept my thoughts to myself. After all, I owed her my freedom. Inside her office, Bev explained that I hadn't been given fair representation during my trial. My previous lawyer had missed some key points, like my pending divorce and other circumstances that would have reduced my sentence. She had brought these details to the parole board, which helped secure my early release. "Why me?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Who hired you to look into my case?" "A friend asked me to look into it," she said, a small smile on her lips. "But knowing who isn't really important." I wanted to know more, but I didn't push. There was something about her that made me feel at ease, even though I didn't know much about her. I asked if I could call her Bev, and she smiled again, saying I could. Feeling bold, I asked if she'd join me for lunch. At first, she seemed hesitant, saying she didn't usually meet clients outside the office. But I reassured her it wasn't a date, just lunch. After a pause, she agreed, and we left the office together. We found a quiet restaurant, and over lunch, she went over the terms of my parole. It was standard stuff, regular meetings with my parole officer, keeping a low profile, staying out of trouble. But as we ate, I found myself drawn to her. She was more than just a lawyer, there was something genuine about her. I complimented her smile, and she blushed, brushing it off, but I could tell she wasn't used to clients speaking to her like that. After lunch, we went back to her office. As we said goodbye, I held her hand a little longer than I probably should have, but she didn't pull away. I knew I'd see her again soon, and the thought of it made me feel hopeful in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. Over the next few weeks, we continued to meet, at first for business, but gradually, it felt like more. We kept things professional for the most part, but there was an undeniable connection growing between us. By the fourth week, Bev told me that our legal business was officially done. But I didn't want that to be the end. I told her as much, admitting that I wanted something more than just a professional relationship. I asked her out on a real date, something beyond the casual lunches we'd been having. She hesitated, clearly torn between her professional boundaries and whatever was growing between us. There's an attraction, sure, she said. But what will people think? What about your parole? I don't care what people think, I told her. Just give it one shot. One date. If it doesn't feel right, we won't do it again. After what felt like forever, she finally agreed. All right, Tom. One date. But don't expect anything more. The following Saturday, I borrowed Molly's car. I didn't want to show up at Bev's place in my old truck, it just didn't feel right for the occasion. When I arrived at her townhouse, she opened the door looking absolutely stunning. She was more beautiful than I had imagined, and it took everything in me not to kiss her right then and there. We went to a nice restaurant, had wine, and talked for hours. She told me about her life, about her troubled family background, and how she had ended up as a lawyer. Her father had been incarcerated for over a decade, and she had dedicated her life to helping people like him. It explained a lot about her, her strength, her resolve, and why she had taken on my case in the first place. As the night went on, I couldn't help but ask her to dance. I wasn't much of a dancer, but I just wanted to hold her close. We danced slowly, and for the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace. At the end of the night, I walked her to her door and kissed her. It wasn't planned, but it felt right. She kissed me back, but then pulled away, reminding me that it was still too soon. Not tonight, Tom. Maybe next Saturday, she said with a soft smile. And that's how it went for the next couple of weeks. We saw each other every Saturday, getting to know each other more. One day, she opened up about her past, about her failed marriage and how it had shaped her into who she was today. I told her about my kids, about how much they meant to me, and how I was trying to be a better father after everything that had happened. It wasn't long before I invited her to meet my family. Molly was hosting a barbecue, and it seemed like the perfect time to introduce Bev to everyone. I knew it was a big step, but I wanted her to be a part of my life. When I told Molly about it, she was thrilled and immediately expanded the guest list. Everyone wanted to meet Bev, the mysterious lawyer who had helped get me out of prison. The day of the barbecue, I was nervous. I stood outside, waiting for her, feeling more anxious than I had in a long time. When I saw her car pull up, I felt an immense sense of relief. She got out, smiling, and handed me a bowl of potato salad. Make sure to have some, she teased. She looked stunning, just like always, and I couldn't see her any other way. Being with her made me feel elated, like I was finally starting to find a piece of happiness I hadn't known in years. I realized I had fallen for Beverly. We had only shared a few kisses, but I just knew she was the one. I hoped she felt the same. Introducing her as my good friend, I watched her mingle with my family. My parents took to her instantly. My dad even quipped, "Don't let her get away, Tom. We already adore her, and we barely know her." Beverly glanced at me and smiled, which gave me hope. When I introduced her to my sister, Molly, their mutual glance felt like positive reinforcement. Beverly then admitted something. She had encountered Molly during my parole interviews but hadn't brought it up until now because it didn't seem relevant. Beverly also disclosed that she had spoken to Amanda, Alice, Jack, and my employer as part of her duties as my legal representative. This information surprised me, but Beverly explained that she never expected to develop feelings for me while being my lawyer and wanted to be honest. She offered to leave if I was uncomfortable, but I didn't want her to go. I realized that all I heard from her was a declaration of love. I embraced her, kissed her, and introduced her to the rest of the family. Then I had to pick up my kids, who were eager to meet Beverly. When I returned, my daughter Sue walked up to Beverly and introduced herself. She asked, "Are you Daddy's girlfriend? You're really pretty, just like Daddy said." Beverly responded kindly, telling Sue she could call her Beverly or Bev, and complimented Sue in return. Sue then introduced her to her older brother, Carrie, who was a bit shy around girls. Beverly knelt down to talk to them, and I could tell from how well they interacted that they were going to become good friends. Even Carrie, who usually wasn't very talkative, told me, "We like her, Daddy. She's so pretty and sweet." Beverly simply smiled at me in response. The barbecue was fantastic. As the evening progressed, Carrie and Sue approached me and asked if Beverly could come with us to the amusement park in 2 weeks. They reasoned that it would be nice for me to have someone to talk to while they rode the rides. I tried to tell Carrie that these questions should be asked in private, as Beverly might have other commitments. He quickly apologized, but Beverly knelt down again, explaining to Carrie that it was a question he should ask me, not her. She then added that she loved amusement parks and would be happy to go with us. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, we all went to the amusement park. The kids eagerly rode all the attractions, and Beverly kept her promise by riding the roller coaster and Ferris wheel with Carrie. On the way back, Sue remarked, "Dad, you should get a car instead of your truck. Beverly can't always use hers, and we won't all fit in your truck." We laughed, but she was right. In the following weeks, I didn't see much of Beverly. Work kept me busy on weekends, and she had court obligations. Although we spoke on the phone occasionally, it wasn't the same. One Saturday, I picked up the kids, and we decided to visit an eatery for pizza and games. After we got home, Sue asked if Beverly could join us next time. I decided to give Beverly a call. "Hey, Beverly, it's Tom. Sue wanted me to call you. Any plans for tonight?" I asked. She replied, "I was actually going out with some friends." "Oh, okay. No problem. Have a great time," I said, feeling a bit disappointed. But then she asked if she could talk to Sue, so I handed over the phone. I only heard Sue's side of the conversation, but Beverly must have changed her plans because Sue told me that Beverly would be there in half an hour. Later that evening, we returned from the eatery with a bunch of stuffed animals, thanks to Beverly's skills at the games. After I dropped the kids off at Amanda's, Beverly and I went back to my apartment. Once we were settled on the couch, Beverly opened up. "Tom, you know I care about you, right? I wouldn't be here if I didn't. I want to be with you, but I haven't trusted a man in a long time. All I ask is that you be gentle and caring. I don't want to feel used, I want to feel loved." We spent the evening together, first on the couch and then in the bedroom. I took my time with her, pampering her with massages and making sure she felt cherished. We shared an intimate night, and it was the most content I had felt in a long time. Holding her afterward, I realized how much I had missed having someone close. The next morning, I got up before Beverly and made us French toast. When she emerged from the bedroom wearing one of my t-shirts, I couldn't help but admire how beautiful she looked, even in the morning. After a quick shower, we sat down to talk. "Beverly, what do you see for our future? You know how much I love you, and my family adores you. What do you want to happen next?" I asked. She smiled and said, "Tom, I feel like I sound like a lawyer right now, but we've only known each other for a few months, and last night was our first time making love. I know it's early, but I want you in my life every day. And if we haven't had our fill of love, we can always go back to the bedroom and spend the day there." I laughed and then said, "Beverly, I want you to be my wife. Will you marry me?" Tears welled up in Beverly's eyes. "Tom, I don't take love lightly. I've made mistakes before, but yes, I will marry you. I promise to always be there for you and the kids. I know the pain of your past marriage, and I vow to be honest and faithful. I expect the same from you." She leaned in and kissed me passionately. I noticed she looked happy but also a bit sad, so I asked, "What's on your mind, Beverly? You seem happy, but something's bothering you." She sighed and said, "I've been thinking about my dad. Most young girls dream about their wedding day, walking down the aisle with their father, but I won't have that. It makes me sad." Beverly explained that her father hadn't been present for her first wedding, and by the time she reached out to him, she had already experienced heartbreak and divorce. I reassured her that this wedding would be different because we were marrying for love, and her father would approve of me. "I'm marrying the man I've loved since our first meeting," she said with a sweet smile. "What? You love me from the start?" I asked, surprised. "I've wanted you since I first laid eyes on you," she admitted. We talked about setting a date for the wedding and agreed that it should happen as soon as possible. After Beverly accepted my proposal, we agreed to spread the news. We decided to set the wedding date for 2 months from that moment. For the next few days, I was elated. I shared the news with Molly and her husband, Kenny, who were thrilled for us. Then, I called my kids to let them know, connecting with both of them through their game console. They were overjoyed and expressed their fondness for Beverly. I assured them the wedding would take place in a couple of months and that they were among the first to know. When I visited Beverly at her office, her secretary, Monica, congratulated me, informing me that Beverly had already shared the news and invited people to the reception. I went into Beverly's office, but I noticed she was crying. "What's wrong, Beverly?" I asked, concerned. She told me she had spoken to the prison warden and asked for a special leave for her father to attend the wedding. The warden informed her that her father, due to his life sentence, would not be allowed to leave the prison under any circumstances. Beverly also revealed that her father's cancer had resurfaced and that he only had 3 to 6 months left to live. Hearing this broke my heart for her, and I held her in my arms, trying to comfort her. Feeling the weight of her grief, I decided to skip work and visit the prison to meet with Lewis and the warden. When I told Lewis about Beverly's wish, he responded with a smile, "Take care of my girl, Tom. Just make her happy." I pitched an idea to him: what if we held the wedding at the prison so that Lewis could walk Beverly down the aisle? Initially, he resisted, but eventually, he agreed, pending the warden's approval. Afterward, I went to the warden's office to make my case. The warden was surprised by my request to hold the wedding in the prison's chapel but eventually agreed to it, on the condition that it be kept small. We could invite only 3 guests aside from ourselves, and Lewis would be allowed to bring some fellow inmates to the ceremony. I expressed my gratitude to the warden and rushed back to tell Beverly the good news. When I returned to her office, Beverly noticed my excitement and asked what was happening. "You don't mind getting married in prison, do you?" I teased. She was confused at first, but when I explained the plan and told her that her father would be able to walk her down the aisle, she burst into tears of joy and hugged me. She couldn't believe it was possible. I also told her about a safety deposit box that her father had mentioned, which contained important items. We went to the bank together, where Beverly presented her birth certificate and accessed the deposit box. Inside, we found a letter from her father. He had written it in case she ever got married or after he passed away. The letter explained that the box contained her mother's engagement ring, which he had kept safe for her. There were also bonds totaling $115,000, which her father had set aside to help pay for her wedding. He told her to share the news with her brother and sister, David and Eva, and to let them know there were boxes for them as well. Beverly was overwhelmed with emotion. We discussed the wedding and decided to invite David, Eva, and Molly. Afterward, we planned to host a reception for family and friends. Beverly and Molly spent the next month preparing for the event, even though it required some extra expenses due to the short notice. Molly also volunteered to capture the ceremony with her digital camera. We visited David and Eva to inform them of the wedding and the circumstances surrounding it. They didn't hold any resentment toward their father, though they disapproved of his past actions. Upon learning of his terminal condition, they agreed to attend the wedding. Beverly also shared with them the details of their father's provisions for them. On the day of the wedding, Beverly and I drove to the prison with Molly and her husband. Molly helped Beverly prepare in a separate room while I got dressed in my tuxedo. Lewis was given a suit by the prison guard to wear for the ceremony. Inside the chapel, I stood at the front with David and Eva by my side as the best man and maid of honor. A prisoner played the piano, and the warden and priest officiated. As the wedding march played, everyone stood as Beverly entered the chapel with her father, Lewis, by her side. Tears streamed down both their faces. It was a touching moment, and Beverly's dream of having her father walk her down the aisle was finally coming true. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. When the priest asked, "Who presents this woman to marry this man?" Lewis proudly responded, "I do." Beverly and I exchanged vows, pledging to love and cherish each other for the rest of our lives. After I kissed the bride, Beverly embraced her father, and we all gathered in another room for cake and refreshments provided by the warden. David and Eva had an emotional reunion with their father, embracing him for the first time in nearly 15 years. Tears flowed as they shared their love for him, knowing it would likely be their last chance to see him. Molly captured the special moments with her camera, documenting the reunion and the heartfelt exchanges. After the ceremony, we returned to town for the reception, where we were greeted with cheers from our guests. Carrie and Sue hugged us tightly, excited to see us. The reception was filled with joy as friends and family gathered to celebrate. Molly arrived with the photos she had taken at the prison, and she had already enlarged several of them to display on the table for everyone to see. David and Eva were there with their families, and they explained to their children who their grandfather was. The reception was a beautiful celebration. Beverly looked absolutely stunning in her wedding gown. She looked like an angel. We danced and dined, and throughout the evening, our lips were practically inseparable. My colleagues reminded me how lucky I was, but I didn't need them to tell me. I already knew I had found something precious. Amanda didn't attend the wedding. I didn't want anything to disrupt Beverly's special day. Watching her walk down the aisle with her father, seeing her reconcile with her siblings, and witnessing the love her family shared were memories I would never forget. 6 months have passed since our wedding. Amanda got married last month, and I'm glad to see Amanda making a genuine effort to turn her life around. My kids have told me that her new husband treats them well. I've switched to the day shift so I can spend more time with the kids and be home with Beverly every night. Bev became pregnant 3 months after our wedding. We were able to share the news with her father before he passed away. He smiled when we told him we were having a boy.